How's it going, everybody? Coach Kevin here with Coach Frank, here for episode 2 of season 3 of Puck Drop. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a couple things. We're going to talk about a little update on the NHL playoffs. We had the draft lottery. And we're going to talk about mindsets and what kind of mindset you have to have, what kind of play style you need to have to really truly be an elite player and make the most of your abilities. So first and foremost, we'll talk about the NHL playoffs. First round was done. We're in round 2, and you and I both made our predictions last episode. Mine was Tampa Bay and Colorado, so Marty wrong, and I think he said Carolina and Dallas.
I did.
Right? So we're both 50-50. At least we're alive in half of our picks.
Yeah.
What have you seen so far in the playoffs that has surprised you, that you've liked, that you didn't expect to see out of these teams? What do you think so far?
I'm very surprised. I should say very surprised. The Flyers beating the Penguins is one of the things I did predict early on. What I liked about the Flyers coming in is I always like that hot team coming in versus a team that's just like flounder on the way. The Flyers were playing basically playoff hockey the month before they even got to the playoffs, so trying to get there. So they kind of surprised me, beating the Penguins. The last game they won was a very close, tight game. And if you watched the third period of the overtime, it was tilted all in the Penguins' favor. And then again, once again in hockey, the team comes back the other way and pops a puck in the net. You see those things happen all the time. The other night you watched Tampa Bay, Montreal with shots for 30-9, and Montreal gets 9 shots at once.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that. That Tampa Bay Montreal game, I said the same thing in that game. It was one of those games where you felt like no matter what was going on, it just had that feeling of Montreal was going to find a way to win that game.
Yeah.
That it was going to be one of those wonky playoff games, and one of those. You look at the goal, which was just an insanely skilled play of Newhook, I believe, to bat it out of the air in that situation and make a nice bag play. But again, he still only had 9 shots.
Yeah, none of the second period.
Yeah, it was a true bend, don't break mentality. And the goalie, Dobesh stayed, he stood on his head in that game. And we talked about that series last time in the sense of, all right, Tampa Bay knows how to get it done. They've got John Cooper, they got Kucherov, they got Point, they got all these guys who went on and they've won cups, and they make deep playoff runs every year, and they know how to win against this young up and coming team that you don't know what you're going to get with some of these young teams. But I think the big X factor for that would St. Louis. Marty St. Louis he knows how to do it as a player, and he is just a player's coach, and he really has gotten that team to really buy into what it takes to win playoff games. Right. And that was so surprising to me. They're a fun team. I really like watching the team. They're a lot of fun. They're fast. They play loose. They're very skilled.
I kind of saw that coming too, because over the last couple of years, they kept getting a little bit bad. Like you could see they were on their way. And St. Louis, you see him in the locker room as the game was over, he's tapping his chest and his play. You could tell those players on play for him.
Yeah. 100%. That's what you got to do as a coach. You have to have players buy into what you're trying to sell. At the end of the day, us as coaches, we can't go out there and we can't skate and can't play. But you have to get the most out of your players. You have to get the players to really accept and be willing to do the little things that it takes to win. Right? It's not everyone's going to score the big goal. Not everyone's going to do all this. We talked about this in the past. You have to have those guys who are willing to block shots, who are willing to just grind away on defense, pin pucks deep, take the hit. Mm-hmm. How many block shots did they have at the end of that game? Somebody who was just the fire rings, and half those shots didn't get through because they were throwing their bodies in front of it. Yeah. And that's the way you got to do it. It's the way you win games. And going back to, and I also agree with the Philly series. I thought Pittsburgh was going to win that series based off experience, but as we've seen this playoffs so far, experience really doesn't have too much. I think that at times Pittsburgh looked very slow.
Yeah,
very smart.
It's an aging team, right? So
Yep, and I think Philly's youth and their speed really took it to them, and especially like it got a little dicey when it was 3-0 and it was 3-2. I think if they would have won Game 6, like oh boy, if they would have won Game 6, you never know.
Yeah,
I mean, how many years have we seen as Rangers fans Pittsburgh blow a 3-1 lead to the Rangers? It just you get a little bit of that rolling boulder. And it builds momentum, and then all of a sudden you become really hard to stop. And they always say the hardest game to win is that clinching game.
Yeah.
It's to put away a team. How do you put a team away? It's so difficult. It's a different mindset. And then, you lose the first one, and then you lose the second one. Now you're on your heels a little bit. You're gripping the stick a little tighter. You're afraid to make mistakes, and next thing you know, things are going bad your way. Like you said, overtime game.
Yeah.
One shot could have made that a game series.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a little surprising. Anaheim, Edmonton, same thing. I expected Edmonton to win that series. I respect the things that McDavid and Draisaitl said after. There's a lot of accountability. There's a lot of look in the mirror type moments. And it'd be interesting to see the direction of that team, what kind of help they get around those two big guys. I think that they're very top heavy, and I think that they've got a lot of really high-end elite talent up top. And the goaltending has been a problem for the past 3 years.
Just give it too many goals.
Too many goals. It's just
tough to crawl in those holes.
Yeah.
One of the things that you brought up last time, and it came out again, is depth, right? And you look at the depth of Edmonton, and then you look like I watched the game last night with Colorado, and you can try to shut down McKinnon, you can try to shut down McCaw, but then when you go to the third and fourth line, and those guys are players that put pucks in it, just turn the games around. I remember going back to the late 70s, 80s, watching the Islanders play. You got Bossy and Trottier and Potvin, and then all of a sudden you got Butch Goring and you got Bobby Nystrom and John Tonelli popping pucks in the net. Those aren't more of the first line players. So when you have that depth, it's one of the things that Messier always talked about, third and fourth line players, Craig McTavish, those kind of guys. And you brought it up last time. And that's something that Edmonton doesn't have. They don't have that third and fourth line depth that I think they need to go a little bit further.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm very much, on theme with a lot of the teams we've been talking about it's a bit of a chaining of the guard. Them, Philly, Montreal, those teams, Buffalo too. We haven't talked about Buffalo yet, but those are the teams that they've been slowly building something, right? And they had that young talent with McTavish and Seneke and Zegras and guys like that, and
maybe this
Leo
also
Carlson, but then you add in guys who also have a winning pedigree, of Kreider and then Luba and guys who have veterans who have had experience. Alex Killorn, another guy who's won cups, knows how to. These guys are guiding and helping these young guys really take their best foot forward and really grow and really take that next step to winning.
That's why when you bring up St. Louis, Joe Quenneville has been a winner his whole life, and now he's coaching that team, and all of a sudden they take a step up, right? They find a way to win, and this is a guy who's won before and has been very, very successful. Because that's probably the reason why they are where they are.
How about, who would ever guess in the year 2026 you get a playoff series of Tortorella versus Quenneville?
Well, yeah. Interesting series.
Yeah. I speaking of Tortorella, that Vegas series, Utah put up more of a fight than I thought they would. That's another good young team where they're not far off.
No.
That's another type team that's going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the Western Conference.
Yep.
Where they made that a series where you talk about winning and knowing how to win. That's Vegas, they know how to win. They make deep playoff runs every year. And Utah gave everything they can handle.
And they got to have like the top end talent when you got guys like Eichel, obviously a tremendous player. And then you look at a guy like Stone, which he's the kind of guy I would love to have on my team. He plays all year long, and he's a good player. And as soon as he gets in the playoffs,
there's no gear.
He's another player. He's just he's exactly with the season. He finds and scores big goals, and he digs pucks out, and he makes plays, and
Yeah.
Those are the kind of guys. What I found, I think I brought up last time, is interesting. Is like, you look at the Canadians, you look at Buffalo, like, you don't know which players are the stones on those teams yet, because they haven't really, they haven't been played that way. Maybe they have 5 of them. You just never know.
It's true. And then the top dogs, they kind of did what they did. They did what we expected.
Yeah.
Colorado and Carolina, they steamrolled. They just completely rolled through their conference. I mean, their first round.
Yeah. Like, you look at that Carolina team, and obviously they have some talent. Otherwise, you can't be successful without talent. But the kind of game that they play, they put you in a bad spot all the time, right? They're always on you. They're forcing turnovers. They're constantly on the forecheck. And one of the things I think would be extremely interesting is watching them play Colorado. Colorado plays Carolina in finals. I would love to see it, because you have the top end talent on Colorado with McCarr and McKinnon and Landeskog and all those really top edge players. And I mean, Carolina has some of them, but is Colorado going to be patient enough and be able to handle that forecheck 60 minutes a game? That's going to be interesting. Another question mark is always goaltending, right? I mean, Anderson for years has never been a top-notch goalie. Maybe this is his year this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that coming out of the East, every year Carolina's going to talk about as, all right, this is the year. This is the year. They always find a way to somehow lose, but now you see, okay, Tampa's out, and it's a little bit more, the path feels a little bit cleaner for Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm not counting out Buffalo. I think Buffalo's very good, and I think Buffalo should give them their biggest challenge. I don't know, Buffalo might lose to Montreal. Montreal just beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But this feels like the year that for Carolina, to really make their run and get over that hump. And if they don't, I don't know what the future holds for that, for Brendan Moore and that group.
Yeah.
If they don't at least make it to the final, like this team on paper and the way they've been playing recently is just too good to not come out of the end.
They should have known.
They should.
And you're also facing a Buffalo and a Montreal team that doesn't have the same experience, which plays a factor too right down the road. I mean, these teams are, it doesn't mean they can't win, but like, if I was a betting guy, I'd have to bet on Carolina in the East.
And Buffalo's a fun team. They're young. They had a really good series against Boston. You really know what to expect. Your brain tells you that they should handle Boston pretty well, which they did. Boston just felt preseason. Boston was a team people were talking about being the worst team in the league. And they had a really good season. So they definitely overshot their estimates. Same thing with Philly, but with Buffalo, they're young, they're fast, they're aggressive, they're fun to watch. And then the other series, that Dallas and Minnesota series, was just a slugfest. I felt like you almost feel bad for those two teams, to get both of those teams. Yeah, that's just a brutal matchup to pull in the first round. Yeah. Aside from Colorado, I think both of those teams probably would have beat just about any other matchup that they could have gotten.
I think the skill level on Minnesota kind of showed out in the end. I mean, you got top end talent, and you got the defenseman Hughes, who is just outstanding. And they're a quick team. Dallas kind of big, a little bit on the slower side, but so I think you'll see some changes in the Dallas lineup coming up over the next year or two.
Yeah, I think so too.
So aging a little bit too. I mean, Ben is getting older, and I just think that they're. I think they're heading in more of a regression than a progression down the road.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think that that Colorado Minnesota series and wild so far. It's been nuts. And it's just Colorado's been on top of 2 games. I could see the next 2 games with Minnesota. This series could very easily be 2-2 after the Minnesota. Minnesota. Mm-hmm. But it could also be a sweep. That's how good these two teams are. You just have no idea what's going to happen. My gut tells me that the winner of that series is going to come out of the West to go to the final.
They should.
I think that those two teams just feel like it's them and everyone else. And the Carolinas in that group too. And, so we'll see. And then you have the next one with Vegas and Anaheim. That's a fun series too. Vegas could absolutely go too. Like we talked about, they have the experience. They do. I don't think they have enough skill to beat
I agree.
Colorado or Minnesota.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. I don't think they will, but it could.
I think, listen, if you look at the Minnesota Colorado, the first two games, very close on the ice, but in the goaltending, there was a goaltending change last night for Minnesota. He gets in, the first shot goes by him, and McKinnon comes down basically 1 against 3 and ends up a 2-on-4, and he takes a backhand that, goalie's got to make that save. If you listen to Messier after the first period, he brings it right out. He says, you can't blame Minnesota kind of defensively. The guy comes down against 3 players and comes across the middle, take the backhand to the back of the net. You're down 1-0 on the first shot. And when you don't get goaltending in the playoffs, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, especially after the game 1, the way that went, where you sit there and you say, you gave up 9 goals. Granted, they were few weren't they better, of course, but like when the first shot of goal goes in, there's a little voice in the back of your head that says, "Oh no, here we go again."
Right.
Like, this is gonna happen again. And I mean, to their credit, turned around, scored on the next shot.
Yes, they did.
Got right back. But when you're giving up this amount of goals, there is that the doubt starts to creep in.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, what do we like? Our team is good. How did we give up 14 goals in 2 games?
Yeah.
What are we doing? We got 2 all-star goalies. We got, you got Quentin Hughes. You got how is this possible that we give up 9 and 5 goals?
Plus, they've been struggling on the special teams.
Yeah.
Their power play has not been good. Their penalty killing has not been good. And if your power play and penalty killing is going to be down against a team like Colorado, they're going to make you pay.
Yeah. So then they're going to go to practice, coming back home, and you sit there. They're going to watch the film and make the adjustments. They're going to come out hard in game 3 at home. But that's down 2-0 against this team is a very deep hole to climb out of.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could.
One thing about they have to win 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Same thing said for the Flyers. Like I don't see how the Flyers had their chance the other night. They took them to overtime. They had chances at the end of the game. They had chances in the overtime. They don't put a puck in the net. Yeah. And there you go. Puck's thrown to the net the other way. It's in the back of the net. But this is something that, like, if you watched over the years, the Rangers knocked Carolina out a couple of times.
Yeah.
And Carolina was the better team. The Rangers knocked them out a couple of times. This year, the breaks kind of went their way. Like, that was one of the games where they could have lost.
Yeah. And
they've lost before in playoffs. And this time they got the bounce. And they have the 2-0 lead. I don't see, listen, it's still NHL, but I don't see how the Flyers beat them 4 out of 5.
I don't think the Flyers are going to win more than 1 game.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think they're going to get swept to this 5. This team is too good. And then the Buffalo Montreal series is going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
Unpredictable series, and that should be a good series to watch.
Yeah.
My gut tells me Buffalo, but like that series, I have no idea how to read that series.
I think Buffalo, again, you don't win on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But I think Buffalo's a little better on the piece of paper. But like that Montreal field, they get down by a goal, they come right back.
Yeah.
It's just like that, and that's a reflection of the coach, though, right?
Yeah.
They just never quit.
They never quit. Yeah, same with the bench there. You can't count that team out. They're still very good. They're very skilled. They've got guys like Caulfield, Suzuki, and Hudson, all those really high end players. And they're just young, right? So they're still establishing themselves, and they're still finding themselves. And I think they're going to be a scary team that for years to come. They're going to be a very good team.
Yeah.
Was this their year to win it? Probably not. I think there's still teams better than them, but this is a team that's going to be a problem, and they're going to be very good, and they're going to give teams a lot of a very hard time in the playoffs for years to come.
Yeah.
So revisiting, it's very boring, but it's just Colorado, Carolina feels like it's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Minnesota can do it, but like you said, if it was any other team they were playing, I would say, they're not out of it. And it was just, like you said, winning 4 out of the next 5 games against that Colorado team is going to be very.
They do have the talent. I just don't know if they have a goaltender. Again, last night I put the rookie goalie in. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Then my soft spot team is out of it.
Yeah.
I would love to see Anaheim make a run and win the cup. Specifically for guys like for that time. Like I would love to see. She should have won a cup as a Ranger. I would love to see Carter win a cup.
Yeah.
I don't care how he gets it at this point.
I'd like to see Buffalo be in it.
I would.
Never won a cup before.
They've been so bad for years.
All those years, and
I would see Buffalo. I would love to see that.
I mean, between the Sabres and the Bills, they're a big old fuck.
Yeah, the Buffalo fans, they've gone through it.
Yeah, they've had enough.
They've had rough, and I know rough fandom. It's when your team's been bad for a long time, you finally get a little taste.
Yeah, New York sports for a lot of years, I guess, other than the Yankees and maybe the football giants, it's been kind of a long drought for the rest of the teams.
It's been tough.
Bad.
But the other big news was you had the lottery with Toronto winning.
Yeah.
Good for Toronto. It's you get. I'm sure it's going to be Gavin McKenna. You get him matched up now with some top end talent with guys like Matthews and whatnot, and Nylander and some of those talents they have over there. But it's just, as our age, it's disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I'm a Ranger fan also for many years, and there's always some kind of dramatic mistake or something that was way back when. I don't remember the year, but the Rangers had 2 picks before the Islanders, and the Rangers took Ron Duguay, who turned out to be a very good player. Lucien Debevois, okay player, and then 2 picks later, the Islanders picked Mike Bossy. And Mike Bossy goes on to score 580 goals in 10 seasons. And we end up with 2 guys, and like I said, Duguay had a good career. But there's always, we get the first pick in the draft, we got Lafreniere, nice player, okay player. And then we got Capo Caco, second pick in the draft, and the Islanders picked first last year, and they end up with a stud defenseman. Yeah. So you kind of have to be a little lucky too, right, along the way. Yeah. Like who's the top guy? You get Celebrini or you get Caco?
Yeah.
So
it's tough. It's always it's a bit of a crapshoot when it comes to the draft. There's a lot of luck involved, and player development comes into play and all that stuff. And the team that I think really lucked out the most, the Sharks.
Yeah. That
team is going to be so good.
Yep.
So good, no matter who they draft. Because they do, from what I'm reading, obviously there's projections, it's rankings and whatnot. It seems like this is a deep draft, especially at the top. And if you've got a top 5 pick, you're in a pretty good spot of drafting someone who's going to be pretty good. And whether they, go ahead and they draft, Stenberg out of Sweden, or they go and they draft one of the defensemen at the top of the draft, they're going between Celebrini and Will Smith, and it's just they got the goalie Askarov, and they've got a lot of other talent that they've accumulated from just being bad for a long time. Will Eklund, another really good player.
Yeah.
You're gonna pair those guys up with just whoever you get at top, whether it's Stenberg or whether it's a defenseman. The way they built that team, my guess is they'll draft a defenseman. Instead of going for another forward, because they've already got these elite forwards, and to pair an elite defenseman up with that core just feels like a balanced team. But then you just take the best of it when you can't go.
Right.
The Rangers are probably in the draft to the defenseman or whatnot, and we'll see how it goes. And let me joke, the draft of the defenseman, we'll trade for the second round pick in 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And, this is the off season. This is the little time to be excited when you're keeping out of this. Like, the draft. Oh, yeah. And everybody becomes an expert. Oh, yeah, I saw that kid playing college. He's so good. Oh, yeah, juniors, he's a stud. He's going to be a beast. And so whether it's hockey, football, baseball, basketball, you see these guys that get drafted. And
listen, the perfect example of draft, you go back and it's baseball, but you're a Mets fan. I mean, although he was not an original Met, Mike Piazza was drafted 300 or 400 or 500, whatever he was in the Major League Baseball draft, and this is a guy maybe the greatest hitting catcher that ever lived.
Yeah.
So his draft is just you just never know sometimes.
I think it was Tom Glavine or Maddox was drafted after Luke Robitaille. in the Major League
Well,
Baseball
yeah,
draft.
exactly. Yeah,
It
was Tom Glavine.
It was Glavine.
It was
Yeah,
Tom Glavine. Yeah.
But drafted after Luke Robitaille in the Major League Baseball draft.
Yeah. So
crazy how it always works. It's a calculated guess when it comes to the draft.
Yeah.
Right. You use as much of your analytics and brain power, the eye test, everything that comes into it. You just kind of sit there and say, you hope that this player that you think is going to be as good as they are develops into that, and because it's a different mindset, and it's once you become that pro, there's the pressures internally, externally of living up to the expectations that have now been set upon you, right?
Yeah.
And again, you talk about Lafreniere, good player. If Lafreniere was a
Seattle Kraken,
yes, or if Lafreniere was a 15th overall pick,
right?
Nobody was saying anything about him.
Yeah.
But in fact, he's a first overall pick. You expect him to be a first overall pick production.
Right.
And because he has a first overall pick production,
right,
he's labeled as a bust. He's not very good, right? He's still a good player. He's not a bad player. Right? I like Lafreniere a lot, but is he a first overall type player? He didn't develop into that, Austin Matthews type.
Yeah. Plus, it's where where do you get drafted by?
Yeah.
You're getting drafted by the Montreal Canadiens and the Rangers. The expectation is to be a top-notch player pretty quickly. And if you go into the Kraken or you go into a team, the Utah or whatever, well, and they made the playoffs this year, and they just let you just tell you to go out and play. I mean, like, how many times did Lafreniere end up on the fourth line and Kako on the fourth line because the pressure was there to win?
Yeah.
And now you know yourself too. If you're playing, being afraid to make a mistake, you make even more, and that pressure's on you. And it's different when you play somewhere else.
Yeah, I always say too that was a big problem with their development and their growth is when they got drafted to, they got drafted to. Like when the Rangers drafted Lafreniere, that was the year that was the COVID year, and that was the year that they were actually a playoff team.
Yeah,
that's it. They made the playoffs that year, and they got first overall. So that was a team that already really had a top six established.
Yeah,
and so now you're taking a young player, maybe some you'll get going when you're giving them third and fourth line minutes, and expecting you to really develop into this elite player, whereas some other teams that aren't as strong and they don't have that strong core built in, they're just kind of letting them go and just say, play. We don't really care if we win or lose at this point, but your development's more important. Celebrini, perfect example. He goes to the Sharks, just play, right? Like he goes out there, he scores a ton of points. He's like -40 on the year and they stink on paper.
Yeah.
Oh, well, like who cares? Play. And then this year he turned into, an MVP caliber player where they just missed the playoffs. Jack Hughes was kind of the same way. That was terrible. Just go play.
When you look at McDavid when he first came in the league. I mean, McDavid would have been great no matter where he plays, right? Because if he's playing for the Rangers or the Royals, but when he first started out to play, Blues 9-7, who cares? Go out and play, and you just play your game, and you're comfortable, and you have to step on the ice. Lafreniere steps on the ice, and he makes a mistake, and Quinn's got him from the first line to the fourth line.
Yeah.
Or Kako. So Kako was in a doghouse, pretty quickly.
Because the expectation, the pressure of that team, the way where they were with their building the roster, was expected to win and be a cup contender, not a developmental team. And there's other teams where when they got that weaker player, that hurts. It stunts the growth of a player who's used to playing, top line skill minutes, right? Yeah. Where you're expected to score. You're not going to take a player who is highly skilled, a good puck handler, a good sniper, a good scorer, and throw him on the fourth line and tell him, okay, now go hit. Go check and forecheck and get on the ice for 30 seconds and hit someone deep and just possess the puck and grind away and block shots. You're never going to ask that player to do that because it's not their skill set. It's not what they've been doing for their whole lives.
If you look at the Rangers at the end of this season, when they were at it, they started bringing up young players and just let them play, and it was like a different team.
Yeah,
they played completely different without the pressure.
I think there is a little bit of bright future with that team. I think Burrell is going to be very good. I like Lava. I like Will Cooley. Cooley runs like Ryan Calvin, same kind of player. I like some of you got Forrescue, local kid, right? You get some of these young guys who got minutes, they were able to play, and I think that's really important for their growth and development, as opposed to just keep going back there losing with a bunch of 30 goals, right? Like just let your young guys make it. You got to know what you have, right? So
when you talk about Fortescue, I was fortunate enough to be around him when I go quite a few years over when he was over at the Saints. Great family, father, heck of a nice guy, and I wish him the best. I mean, just a great family, and I hope he does really well. I hope he gets to get a lot of playing time for the Rangers next season. Let's hope that works out for them.
Yeah. So, kind of pivot from the pros to youth and whatnot. And you just talked about, Lily Kufarsky, you've had experience coaching, and he's the guy who made it, right? And I'm sure there are plenty of players who didn't make it, but still had really good hockey, really, really got careers and really excelled in the sport. But I'm sure that there are also a lot of players who, maybe when they were 13, 14, 15 years old, was the guy. He was a stud.
Yeah.
But by the time they were 15, 16, 17, they fizzled out and they were just another average player. Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times what that is, it comes down to mindset and the focus and the drive and doing what you need to do to be successful, right? I feel like when people sometimes lose it, your average fan, is the fact that you watch the NHL games and you see a player who's like a fourth liner, fourth liner, and we sit there and, this guy stinks, right? He's got 5 points on the year, he can't skate, he can't do this, that, but at some point in that guy's life, he was the best player on his team. Correct. He was probably a first line center, first line winger, top D pair, shut down the best player on his team. But as he got older, that gap got smaller. So it's so minuscule on the top level. And I think the players that can tweak their game and change their style are the players who really become successful, right? A player like Matt Rempe, right? Is that guy. He is a fourth line grinder type player, right? But at one point, he was a goal scorer when he was out, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So it's a lot of times I feel like it's the players who are successful are the players who will buy in to do whatever they need to do. They realize how hard it is, and they will have that mindset. I will do whatever I need to do. If that means I'm not scoring every shift anymore, and so be it. If that means I only score 2 goals all year, and I can win a cup for my team, so be it. I have my role. I'm going to fill my role. And I feel like that's what sometimes gets lost amongst youth players growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I also think too, like from my experience, my years doing this, that you recognize a lot of those players, not just on the ice, but off the ice. It's the guy that wants to do the extra stuff off the ice. And those are the guys that usually become more successful. Not just the guy when he steps onto the rink and he plays. You can also tell an attitude. Like I've coached many players myself too, but you can just tell the difference between player 1 and player 2 by their preparation and their mental focus, and the attitude makes a big difference. Of course, and that's like, I mean, what's I can't think of the guys right now. What's the name of the Alabama football coach?
Tim.
Saban. I mean, I listened to an interview with him one time for like an hour on the radio, and he was talking about Alabama football, and he said, we will not take anybody into our program. It's a program here. It's not like an individual who doesn't have the educational ability to work hard, and it's a culture here. You're not just going to walk in. Your attitude is not the right way when you walk in here. You're going to be walking back out again. And I've seen it over the years. The players that go a little further are the guys that have that mental ability. Like you said, they're going to adjust to whatever they have to adjust them. Listen, talent is talent, right? The further you go, the deeper the talent pool becomes, right? So if you're playing at one level and you go to the next level, then each level becomes a little harder, right? Because now you're going up against everybody else. And usually, like one of the things you did say is like all these players were top players where they came from. So they all had skill. And now comes a big difference when you get thrown into that next set of level of intensity and skill level can change very quickly.
Yeah, I see year after year, there's always that player who, he's a top guy who, at a tryout, he won't show well. If he's a kid coming from the outside trying for a better team, he's not going to show well at tryout. practice. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to go hand. He's not going to do all this stuff. But in a game, that kid is fun.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting out of that kid.
Yeah.
You know that kid will throw his face in front of a puck to block a shot. You know that kid will forecheck and grind away and do all the little things. And it's one of those things that is just the intangibles.
Yeah.
Right? The intangibles. I had a kid, I've coached kids too, where it's just like, you wish that they had that drive off the ice. Because I've coached kids who, they're multi-sport athletes who they don't have time. They're so good at, they're just freak athlete kids where they're playing a bunch of sports at high level, so they don't have time to really focus in on one sport yet. But they're so good at all of those sports.
Yeah.
Like, man, if you would have just focused out on one of those sports, how good you can be. I had a kid last year on my 16 AA team who he was a high level soccer player. So Kern, and he played soccer for his high school team. Very good soccer player. And when he came to the game, see, he would miss practices, sometimes he'd miss a game if they, completely with varsity soccer going on. But this kid would miss a practice. And then he'd come to the game, and it doesn't matter what line you put him on, he plays the same way, with the same intensity. And he just goes in and he's putting you through the boards and outwork and out hustle. And he's not the prettiest, not the flashiest. Next thing you know, he's got 2 goals a game.
Well, it's funny you say that because we know at the top work ethic and coachability are paramount to be successful. But I'll give you 2 NHL examples of players who became extremely successful. I also believe that you need to know who you are and what you are. Am I this kind of player? Am I that kind of player? You look at this one guy who got to the Florida Panthers 2 years ago, Brad Marchand, right? And here's a guy who, when he talks about his career when he was younger, I was this little tiny, skinny, scrawny guy. My 2 brothers were better than me, and I had to turn my game around and kind of play a little nippy, chippy, nasty, in your face, say things to you and whisper in your ear. And because of that, look at the guy. He's probably has a shot to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. I mean, you look about that guy's career. For the amount of ability that he had growing up and where he turned out was absolutely off the charts. But I'll give you another example. It's a little bit before your time. But there's one player who played in the NHL, this is an amazing statistic when you listen to this. Since the modern era of hockey, we'll go from 1960, which is around the modern era, to 2026. So you're talking about 66 years of hockey. There is only one player in the NHL that was a forward that has 500 points or less that made it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now think about how many guys go to the Hall of Fame with 500 points or less. Years ago, early NHL, when back in 1919 and 20 and 25, much more prevalent then because they didn't score as many goals. But in a modern day hockey, to go to the NHL, and this is my point about knowing who you are. I don't know if you have any idea if you know who the guy player was. There's a guy who played for the Montreal Canadiens named Bob Gainey. And Bob Gainey he's probably, if you want to look at Patrice Bergeron as the greatest defensive hockey player of all time, well, then Bob Gainey's number 2. He won 6 or 7 Selke Awards, but he knew, think about it, he played 16 seasons and he scored 501 points. That's about a little over 30 points a year, 32 points a season. How many guys are in the Hockey Hall of Fame with scoring 32 points a season? 1. But he knew what he had to do when he stepped on the ice. He was a winner. And he knew he was the guy that was going to shut down McKinnon. And he was the guy that was going to shut down Phil Esposito. So if you need to know kind of what you are and who you are, so when you get on the ice, you always play with your strength. It's kind of something we were talking about before.
Yeah. Yeah, it is doing whatever you need to do to. Some players sit there and get a little selfish. You're human. It's what you are. You want to be the guy who scores the goals. You want to be the face, the superstar. That's fine. If you're that guy, be that guy. But if you find that you're not being successful anymore, that style, it's either change or get left behind. Right? Because sometimes you don't have that choice. Right. If you want to still keep climbing, and what what you think your main skill set is, if that's just not good enough, then you got to do something different to be better,
Right.
to be good enough.
That's right. And when you think about that, that comes from your mentality, right?
Yeah.
And who you are inside, because there were just certain guys that just, relentless, and certain guys just when I've coached, several, some of the guys that I would even mention were low level players, but at the level they played at, the dedication they had to their teammates and to themselves, you just know they're going to be successful. Does that mean they're going to go to the NHL, play divisional in college? No, but you see it all walks of hockey.
I had a guy last year who he was captain of my team for my 16 AA team, and he was just so appreciative to be where he was, playing at the level that he was, on the team that he was, that he would do anything that he needed to do. He would score goals for me. He would forecheck, he would hit, he would block shots, he'd kill penalties. He just did everything right.
Mm-hmm.
His dad would tell me, before he made a AA team, he never made anything. He was ever given a chance. Never made higher than a B team when he was younger. And as he got older, he started to fill out a little bit, and he started putting in a little bit more work, and he got better and better and better. He finally made a AA team and whatnot. And then last year he was being captain of our team, and it's just a player like that. Like I said, he knew what he had to do. He knew his skills and his limitations, what he does well, what he doesn't do well, and he just did what he did well to the best of his abilities, and he led. And he had the right mentality, and I think that's super important, and that's such a difference maker, right? Like I said, we talked before, guys like a guy like Will Cooley, I mentioned Ryan Callahan, got guys like that who were captain with feet. Same era as my coach, like Dustin Brown, captain of those great Kings teams that won 2 Stanley Cups, right? That just guys who may not light up the score sheet,
yeah,
but they do enough, and they do what needs to be done. They'll score goals, they play defensive hockey, they hit, they block shots, they rally the troops. Guys that will make the rest of your team go to war for them.
Yeah.
That is what that is how you motivate and drive a team.
It's also interesting too, because I'll tell you a quick funny little story. It's not a big story, but probably there's a guy that coaches at Suffern High School, Rob Schellin. Rob, very successful coach, won 4 or 5 state championships. He probably wouldn't even remember this if I was talking to him. I've known him pretty well. And about 25 years ago, he asked me a question. He asked me, we were in sport around, but he walked over and he said, "Let me ask you something, Frank." And I said, "Sure, Rob, what do you want to ask me?" And he said, "Do you think skill is hard work is a skill?" And for 25 years, I'm still thinking about the answer. Because is hard work a skill? I don't know if I can come up. I kind of think it is, but I've watched many players over the years, and you see guys that just don't work hard, and there are other guys that's just bred inside them. So that's a question I want you, when I see you in the rink a week from now, I want you to give me your opinion if you think hard work is a skill. Is it in your DNA? There are many players I've come across that were so talented, and the work ethic, if it would have been there, who knows what they would have been. But the work ethic wasn't there, and they still were talented. But I still don't know. I heard Rob mention that 25 years later, I still don't have that correct answer, because sometimes I go back and forth.
Here's the thing too, and I guess it's a matter of, when you talk about hard work, how do you define hard work, right? It's not just putting your head down and skating as fast as you physically can, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? It's doing the drills correctly. And even if it means slowing down to make sure you're technically sound and making sure that you're doing it right, doing the little things. It's not just chasing the puck around the ice and skating as fast as you can and always basically gassing yourself out, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's a good question, because I do think hard work is ingrained in your DNA. I do think that plays a big part of it, but it's not an end all be all. There could be a player who, it's not ingrained with their DNA, but they just sit there and they view things and they sit there and say, okay, yeah, I got to work hard. I understand that. Mm-hmm. And that's a maturity thing. It would be a very mature thing for a young player to do, is to recognize where it hasn't been instilled in them but they recognize personally that they need to work harder. They need to be done.
I'll give you, a quick little, kind of a funny story. One of the kids that played on my team last year, there was a couple of times where he had the puck and he has it taken away from him. And the puck is taken away from him, and then he just watches the guy take the puck away and skate away. So at the end of the game, I had him in the locker room, kind of made a laugh at it. And I said, I won't mention his name, but anyway, I said, let me ask you something. I said, if you worked all day long in a field for 10 hours, picking up rocks and doing hard work, and you're picking roots out of the ground, and you're sitting out there, and it's 100 degrees, and you're sweating, and then at the end of the day, you work 10 hours, and you're done, and your boss walks over to you and hands you $400. A lot of money, right? Oh yeah, it's a lot of money. I said, you got paid this $400, and you take a couple of steps and you drop it on the floor, and some kid comes along and picks it up and starts walking away with it. I said, what would you do? So I go back and get it. I said, well, maybe you need to do that with the puck next time. It's like walk away with the puck.
Yeah.
But that's just like, it's and then some other guys, you take it away from them, and then they're still right back on. It's 3 seconds later.
They'll bite your ankle. They puck away. It's it's true. It's that killer instinct, that drive, that motivation. Not everybody has it. But yeah, okay, that was pretty good. I hope that you watch this, take a little something from us, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.
And just don't drop the $400.